Distinguished delegates, agenda item 6 of the fourth session of the Committee on Energy will commence shortly. May I please ask everyone to please take your seats.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, welcome back. I had you had pleasant evening. The meeting is called to order. We will proceed this afternoon with the concentration of the agenda item 6, adoption of the report of the committee on the energy of the fourth session. I have the pleasure to present to you draft the report of the committee as contained in the document ESCAP/SE/4/L1. The report of the committee contains two sections. First, matters brought to the attention of the Economic and the Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. And second, information of the organization of the session. An account of the proceeding will be prepared after the meeting and circulated for factual correction within a week of the conclusion of the meeting. This will be annexed to the report. I would like to inform delegates that the language editing of the report will be undertaken by the Secretariat following adoption of the report. In view of this, distinguished delegates are requested to focus on the substance of the report of the lead editorial work, correcting any grammatical or typical errors of the Secretariat. I also request those delegates wishing to make minor changes to text to read them out dictation speed. With respect to any major changes, please provide a written text Secretariat to that they were entering on screen concentration by all delegations. You can see the draft of the screen. May I propose that we drop the text in the draft report with I'm adopting it. We will now review of the draft report section by section. Let us start with section 1. Are there any comments on decision 1? As I see no comments on decision 1 adopted. Are there any comments on decision 1? Move to the decision 2. I recognize distinguished delegate from United Kingdom. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The original text suggested within the documents, the pre-session documents, on this particular decision 2, made reference to a working group, which of course we had a discussion yesterday and most members agreed not to having that working group, but it also made reference to the UN Resource Management, UNRMS principles. And I am not clear on the reasoning as to why that has not survived in this decision. Am I able to get an explanation that I can report back to Capital? Because that was removed quite swiftly yesterday, which I think is a comment around more generally around how these decisions have been handled. Text has been cleared before we've had a chance to actually get time to go back to Capital and come back. So we would like to be able to report back as to why that has been removed. Thank you.
Thank you. Secretariat, can you explain?
Yes, I'll try my best. So yeah, there were a number of changes made. It was in one of the edits that requested we end the sentence in paragraph in that regard. And I remember my memory as UNRMS was linked to after that. The logic in keeping it like this is that the Minister Declaration has 2 paragraphs of relevance, one that references UNRMS and one that has a broader list of minerals, metals, and technologies and other issues of relevance. And so by referencing the Minister Declaration, the assumption is it covers both, but of course, if that's, well, maybe defer to you in terms of whether it should come back in or not. Yeah.
Yes, United Kingdom, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think given what we have experienced this week in terms of the conversations around critical minerals, and in particular the work that we see the Secretariat complete, we would prefer to have the reference to UNRMS back in there. Is it possible to pull that from a previous version?
Yeah, absolutely. Can we?
Yes.
Well, should we pull up the text now? So just to come back in on this is where the text ended. And so you can see why we ended up cutting out that particular text. I think we were waiting actually for confirmation from the delegate from Japan. And my memory is you did confirm yesterday, but we'd happily hear from you again on this.
I recognize the distinguished delegates from Japan UN also.
Thank you to the Secretariat for coming back on this issue. We actually think that it's probably simpler also I reread your document again to understand what we were really problematizing here under this agenda. And I think we should be referring to the document, which also includes the UNRMS, and that this is a matter in relation to critical minerals and the UNRMS. And so in that regard, I don't think the document, this is a factual correction, because I don't think the document in describing the status of where we are on this issue didn't really talk about the progress made in the implementation of the declaration from our understanding of the document. So can we just, Committee on Energy notes the document 80, CE 4/5, and invites member states to give due consideration how to due consideration on issues related to critical minerals and maybe UN RMS or something like that in that regard for factual accuracy with regard to what we're discussing. So instead of in areas related to UN RMS and to minerals, materials, so we're fine with the brackets that we were replacing, UN RMS and to minerals, rather than the one before that that cuts that. But we also think we should be noting not the progress made in the implementation, but we should just note the document, which is more factually accurate. So there are 2 points to my intervention. I hope that's clear.
I recognize the distinguished delegate from Russian Federation. Please take the floor.
Thank you and good afternoon. Well, considering the original text provided, I think also in recollecting the discussion that we had about this paragraph, the idea not to refer to the UNRMS here was due to the fact that the name of the group, as it was suggested, and the area of work which is what was supposed to engage in, was specifically related to critical minerals for energy transition. Then there was a problem with the words energy transition, that's why it was dropped. And that's how we end up only with critical minerals. So for us, there is a logic behind also dropping the reference to the UNRMS, because like UNRMS encompasses all sorts of resources and minerals and technologies, and I mean resources and minerals, not technology. And it's a separate line of work which is done under the committee. And instead of like singling out the critical minerals out of the work on the UNRMS, which probably would not be a good idea, because that would be like addressing only one of the many aspects and one of the many components of the UNRMS. The idea was to focus this group, if it was supposed to be established, now it's not, on specifically like how critical minerals play a role in energy transition. So by keeping reference only to critical minerals without referring to the UNRMS, I think we would capture this idea and not to create a confusion that from now on the committee would only review only one part of the UNRMS, which is related to critical minerals. So in that sense, we would support the formulation which is now on the screen without adding UNRMS in there. And that's one point. And second point, if we change the beginning of the paragraph, that's answering the comment made by distinguished delegate of Japan, with reference to the document submitted for consideration by the committee. Technically, we would, I think, then have to change the verb and say the committee considered the document number that outlined the progress made in the implementation, and then the committee invited member states to give due consideration on the implementation of the declaration. Because otherwise, I mean, if it was the informal document, then the committee would note it. But since it's like a formal document submitted for consideration of the committee considered the document and then invited member states. So if the reference is given to specific documents submitted for consideration of the committee, we would prefer also to change the verb for notes. Or if we don't add it the way the language stands now, it's fine for us. Thank you.
I recognize the distinguished delegates from Japan. Please take the floor.
We're okay with the end, the way it is, the critical minerals, but we wonder about noting the progress made in the implementation related to critical minerals, because I didn't see that from this document. So it's really like a factual correction. I think we can note that this document was posted and therefore invite member states to give due consideration. I think that's probably more correct, and maybe you can cite the title of the document, or 80 CE/C4/5. That's what I'm saying, is that I don't know whether we kind of noted the progress made in the implementation of this in our agenda discussion on that point. So that's my observation.
I recognize the distinguished delegates from China. Please take the floor.
谢谢主席，各位同事，下午好。我想我们现在已经接近了会议的尾声，大概还有1个多小时的时间啊。我们昨天花了很长的时间来讨论这个问题，我们也花了很长时间去请示各自的首都。在现在这个时间段再修改案文，我想我们没有足够的时间再请示首都了。这是我们考虑到的一个技术上的一个困难。如果说我们现在能够就屏幕上显示的案文达成一致的话呢，我想这是一个最好的一个解决方案。如果说我们再重开谈判，再重新修改案文，恐怕不是在1个多小时之内能够得到首都的答复的。谢谢。
Okay, Secretary, can you answer please?
Sure. Just one additional point in response to the distinguished delegate from Japan. Regarding, I take your point about the factual nature of the document. We included the ASEAN case study as an example of progress in our region. I think we didn't want to be implying that there's consistent or constant progress across the entire region, but there has been an example in our region of some progress since the declaration of countries working towards. So that, again, it was written in the context of the original text. So, but I think that's hopefully still captured here by the reference to the Minister Declaration. At least that's our hope and intent here. Thanks.
I recognize distinguished delegates from United Kingdom. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. If we included the word including after Pacific, so including in areas related to critical minerals, which might make it feel like it's less of a focus in terms of progress just on critical minerals. You know, there's been progress on other areas. Perhaps that might work in a way that nobody needs to necessarily get instructions for.
Is there any comment? United Kingdom, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify our position, particularly for those that weren't in the room, we did not manage to get instructions yesterday as the edits were happening, and so we had a request from Capital for an understanding as to why we were removing the language on the UNRMS, which, based on the previous formulation, which was quite focused on this working group, I guess I sort of understand that our preference is for a mention of the UNRMS, but given that it's in the specific paragraphs of the declaration, it's not a problem. So we're not wedded to any changes in decision 2. Have an entirely different opinion on decision 3. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates from China, please take the floor.
谢谢主席。也谢谢尊敬的英国代表提出的修改意见。正如刚才我指出的，首先，任何的对阿文的修改，可能都需要重新走一遍申请首都批准的流程。第二点呢，就是我想指出，可能你的关切在 Decision 3里边已经包括了。你看 Decision 3的这个第1句，其实它已经讲到了，也是同样的内容。Notes the progress made in the implementation ministerial declaration。这是一个非常综合的表述，它是包括所有的领域。所以不知道这样的一个解决方案是不是能够符合你的需求？谢谢。
I recognize distinguished delegates from Japan. Please take the floor.
So thank you to the UK for including, because again, I did read your document faithfully, and I'm saying from paragraph 8, the current status of trends in the minerals and materials sector in the Asia Pacific, and I didn't get that impression, which was why I pointed at this point. It's very clear that there are issues, and therefore you were requesting due consideration, right? So that was the logic behind it. But if it's including, we weren't sure that we really had substantial progress in this area, which I think was why we were doing the policy dialogue. And I don't think, typically in multilateral meetings, there's usually no controversy related to noting a report. So, there's a difference between, a suggestion that is simply about noting a document that you've posted. I do think it's useful to note the document in areas related to critical minerals as per document C4/5. Or you can have a footnote, but just, I think it's useful to put it in context to see what we're talking about. But we're flexible. We don't think it's a controversial matter.
Okay, the secretariat are now working on the section 2. Is there any other comment from the UK? Let's move to the next section. Okay. If the UK's comments are acceptable, if any comments, I see the from the China, please.
谢谢主席。刚才我向英国代表提了一个问题，可能还没有得到回答。我的问题是decision 3里面的这段表述是否能够满足他的关切？如果说我们能得到肯定的答复的话呢，那么我们就可以保持decision 2的原有案文不变。谢谢。
Okay, thank you. Distinguished delegates from the United Kingdom, please answer.
Thank you, Chair. I was slightly foreshadowing in my comments what I would say on Decision 3. May I suggest that we move formally to Decision 3 because we're not content with the way Decision 3 has been suggested and it currently stands.
From UK. Yes, everybody. Oh. So, yes, please, United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. As mentioned, we had concerns that were more around the UNRMS, not necessarily the focus in the framing of Decision 2, which was more for the distinguished delegate from Japan. So we're not wedded at all to using the word including here. That can be removed, no problem. But we do have comments when we move to Decision 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is it okay from all of the distinguished delegates? Okay, let's move forward. I declare decision 1 and attempted. Is there any conception of the decision? I see no objection. I declare decision 2 as amended by a distinguished delegate of adopted by the committee. Let's move on to decision 3. Are there any comments on decision 3? UK, please.
Thank you, Chair. So Decision 3 originally came out as a recommendation, which is what we sought instructions for on Wednesday evening overnight from Capitol. And so yesterday, upon reporting back that this is now a decision to be adopted from the committee as a whole, our strong steer from Capitol was that they were not content with the way that this places an undue influence on SMRs, which are already part of civil nuclear technologies as per paragraph 10. And so we would move to the view that given this decision and the way it's worded is not balanced in terms of the number of technologies it's talking about, we would want to move this into the further down into the draft proceedings, as we have done for other recommendations made by other delegations. Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize the distinguished delegates from China. Please take the floor.
谢谢主席。抱歉，我想寻求你的这个谅解。我们能看一眼最后通过的第申性2的案文吗？看一下案文，我想拍个照。谢谢。
Yes. I recognize distinguished delegates from Korea.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding Decision 3, our delegation supports the position of the UK. We believe that the paragraph should be written in a more balanced manner. So we think that it is not appropriate to single out some specific area of cooperation. So for this reason, we are not in a position to support this paragraph, and we want to remove this paragraph. Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize the distinguished delegates from Russian Federation. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I would also, like as our Chinese colleagues, prefer to see the decision 2 as it was adopted. The problem is that, as rightfully was mentioned by the colleague from the delegation of the United Kingdom, probably the decision 2 and decision 3 go in conjunction. So as long as we are considering decision 3, we would also prefer to keep decision 2 open. Because if there is like a strong argument from the floor saying that we should not single out a standalone area of cooperation listed in the ministerial declaration, which, I mean, first of all, like small modular reactors were not mentioned in the declaration, so it's not part of the declaration. We are kind of like adding probably this to the list, and as we had discussion yesterday, if there is any appetite to add more items in there, like hydrology or thermal reaction, sources of energy, that we would of course be welcome to. But as long as, I mean, if the whole discussion is going in the direction that we're not singling out any specific line of work under the ministerial declaration or beyond it, then again, having the decision 2 in the way it's currently formulated would also be irrelevant, because, well, decision 2 is about singling out critical minerals out of all the areas of work outlined in the ministerial declaration. Then if we are proceeding like in the logic that we are not singling any specific component of the declaration, then I believe that, and I'm afraid the only decision the committee would take is to note the progress on the declaration and agree to work further on the implementation of declaration. That at least would be, well, consecutive and logical. Because, I mean, if we are singling out a specific critical mineral component in decision 2, why can't we single out another component in decision 3? So I believe we won't be able to agree on that matter, because, well, that would be like, well, picking up the favorite child out of all 4 of us. So, I mean, yeah. I'm first of all calling for us not to close decision 2, and as long as we agree on decision 3, and, well, we would work on the whole block of decision, and yeah, and decide what to do with decision 3. Thank you.
I recognize the distinguished delegates from United Kingdom. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So we would be on board with 1, deleting decision 3, but 2, ending decision 2 at the end of the ministerial declaration for Asia and the Pacific, and not necessarily referring to critical minerals in decision 2 either. We've had this discussion. This decision was originally put forward by the Secretariat in order to set up this working group, which we're now no longer doing. So it makes perfect sense that we might not single out critical minerals here when you've had such broad discussion on the progress of the ministerial declaration over the week. So we'd be content in amending decision 2 to reflect less of a focus, if that would resolve the entire issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize distinguished delegates from Japan. Please take the floor.
Given the happenings of yesterday, where we were about to consider another decision that was introduced up front, and I wanted delegates to recall what report ESCAP 81/28 and paragraph 24, where representatives agreed that proposals should be submitted 1 month in advance of the session, as already provided for in the current conference structure for the consideration of draft resolutions. And this, of course, was after consultations during the intersession. And so with this in mind, and hearing the ideas about the optics of singling out one particular technology. For example, we feel strong, as a volcanic country, geothermal is certainly also not in the list. So I think, we are opening up a can of worms here. Again, I think this is already in the ministerial declaration, so we kind of wonder whether we need decision 3 at all in that light. And number 2, as I always said from the beginning, I think the nature of this and the way in which it was put forward really warrants it as an account of proceeds. That has been our core position, and it does still remain that is our preference, because so soon after the 81st Commission, and we do this, is really not optimal. Of course, in the account of proceeds, if the Russian Federation wants its name in there, maybe the Secretary can accommodate that as well, that this was put forward by them. So we think that option really should be considered at length. So that is our preference, to have this in the account of proceeds. If not, we really wonder whether decision 3 is at all necessary, because it is already part of the ministerial declaration. Thank you.
I recognize distinguished delegates from United States of America. Please take the floor.
I'll just chime in to say thank you, Chair, first off, and just chime in to add my support to the Russian Federation's recommendation to truncate Decision 2 and either move Decision 3 to the account of proceeds or delete it altogether. So I'll just add my support to that suggestion. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates from Russian Federation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to say that indeed we have been discussing at length the preparatory process for the bodies of the conference structure of the Commission. That's true. I have to confess that I concur with definitely with the spirit behind that decision taken about the due time given for the for submitting the proposals. On the other hand, I do recognize and I do acknowledge that it is indeed like I was getting a feedback that we are in a kind of a transitional period in brackets, and that's why we hoped for kind of flexibility within this transitional period when some valid issues are added, not necessarily within this time frame of 1 month. Honestly, we believe that the value of additions overweighed the procedure, not procedural, because procedure, they have the mandatory standing and the decision, it is a guidance. That said, I'm just explaining, I'm not arguing, I'm just explaining that we counted on a flexibility of delegation, and the guiding principle for us was actually to add value to the discussions. That's why our proposal on youth, that's why our proposal on SMRs. Otherwise, we do not add any meaningful deliverable. This is first thing. Second, I did not have personally any appetite for this sophisticated discussion about the differentiation between decisions and recommendations. We have kind of slightly different view as it is technically viewed by the internal proceedings of the Secretariat. And if you, colleagues, recall, initially what we suggested, for example, and both for the youth and SMRs, those were recommendations, standing alone recommendations. And that's what we did actually under many other committees, not only on energy. So we take decisions, we take recommendations, and we are not arguing about actually this recommendation goes actually in the first section of the report or it goes to the account of proceedings. So this is not that. So to say that, I would say that we might be quite willing to rebrand the title, for example, for the decision 3 into a recommendation as a standing alone recommendation. This is number one. Then we also need to address the issues in a holistic way. And indeed, as was rightly mentioned by my colleague, if we are trying deliberately, or if we are trying in good faith to focus on one issue like critical minerals, so then why should not we also wrap our head, as I always say, around another issue? So honestly, we are more focused on the substance rather than on the titles, when those titles are not necessarily do not necessarily imply legal meanings. That's why I suggest that we have to take both decision 2 and decision 3, or recommendation 2 and recommendation 3 on their merits, but not trying to go into these endless discussions that we missed this time frame, like 1 month. Yes, we missed it. I acknowledge. But okay, as I said, we are in a transitional period, and our lead agencies and ministries back home, they are not necessarily keeping with this pace. Yeah, I have to acknowledge that, but it does not prevent us actually from trying to add value to deliberations. That said, I underscore, we can consider a rebranding decision 3 into recommendation. We can consider a rebranding decision 2 into recommendation, but with the understanding that they are standing alone recommendations of the committee, but just not, you know, a simplistic approach like dropping them to the account of proceedings, which is also the possibility, but this is actually the last resort. Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize the distinguished delegates from United Kingdom, please.
Thank you, Chair. You know, I think we all sympathise with wanting to have the ability to reflect the discussions over the week, whilst also giving capitals enough time to go back and forth, and particularly where there is going to be a lot of back and forth about which specific technologies. So I think that's where we're really stuck with decision 3 in particular. So I would say that our position in wanting to remove this and put it in the account of proceeds applies also if this was a recommendation rather than a decision, because the issue is that the wording is the entire committee. The entire committee agrees this. So therefore, this needs to reflect what the entire committee really thinks majorly. It needs to reflect consensus. And in our view, this does not reflect consensus because it is really focusing on SMRs. And now we had this discussion yesterday and we engaged in good faith without the steer from our capital, but based on what we know is our position on these technologies. You know, as soon as we expand out this list and we start to talk about geothermal, hydropower, solar, wind, we get into this debate, which unfortunately we foresee as leading to you know, a list that would detract from the level of ambition in the ministerial declaration. You know, there might be some delegations that don't necessarily just want to focus on what's new, but want to focus on other things. And we do see small modular reactors as part of civil nuclear, which is there in the ministerial declaration. So our steer has been, whether it's a recommendation or whether it's a decision, we don't want the framing as it is that singles out SMRs, and I don't believe we are going to have time in the next hour for people to consult for a new list that is broader. Thank you.
Thank you. Russian Federation, please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dear friends, I really would like actually to respond briefly to what has been said. We understand honestly that there are different approaches and priorities in different states and different member states of the Commission. That's what we acknowledge. By the way, this is reflected in the text according to their national priorities and circumstances. So we have to, so to say, the legal warrant is in text. I understand that. On the other hand, regarding this theoretical discussion, whether we have the consensus of the room about the issue or not, I have to say that this debate should not prevent actually the value added to the deliberations. This auspicious gathering actually provides the opportunity to all delegations to try and introduce the ideas that they think might be helpful for moving further in energy cooperation. We did not hear anything from other delegations actually for a specific proposal. I am keeping aside the statements by the delegation. Our delegation actually thought that it might be useful to share with those ideas we have. So why should we restrain our efforts if actually if we see that, for example, no other ideas are coming? I'm trying to explain that if we cannot actually see other recommendations, it should not prevent delegation X or Z from coming up with the ideas that they believe honestly might be helpful. That's how we thought about the youth engagement, and that's how we thought about the SMRs and nukes. Indeed, that might be very helpful for many interested delegations. Okay, I can accept that, for example, the priorities of member states are different, so then we are open to discuss other priorities. That's fine. They did not come. We did come with one of the issues, not necessarily saying that it is a priority, but we are just underscoring the valuable contribution that this can do. And last but not least, we can find a wording for even for the decision or recommendation. We can find a wording that would reflect that, for example, it is not a consensus-based decision of the committee, and that might be actually the cooperation and efforts by those states interested in this. So you ask lawyers, they will always tell you, tell me what you want, we will find the language. So I can suggest the language that would reflect, for example, that this this kind of incentive actually is addressed to those willing to engage in this exercise. But we believe that at least it will, this kind of issue might be a value added to the deliberations. Otherwise, other way we end up with just referring to the acknowledgement of the ministerial declaration, and that's it. It's not good enough, actually, for such a meaningful body like a Committee on Energy. I stress again, and I would invite attention of my dear colleagues from the UK delegation specifically. We can suggest language for the text, amending that in a way that it would reflect that whatever is addressed in this specific text, it is designed actually to be addressed to those willing to do so. Thank you.
May I suggest to the 10 minutes to break to clear all the comment discussions from the new body? Is it okay? United Kingdom, please.
Thank you, Chair. Did you want a small group discussion with the Secretariat in that 10 minutes? Yes, okay.
Okay, let's 10 minutes break. Okay, let's join to. Okay, continue the sections. Please, Secretariat, comment, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Based on the informal consultation during the break, I think we come up with a solution to move both decision 2 and decision 3 to the proceedings, and then we only keep decision 1. That was already adopted.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Is there any other comment? I did not recognize any other comment. I recognize the distinguished delegates from United States of America. Please take the floor.
Just wanted to make a generalized comment, and first off, thanks to the flexibility of the delegations who chatted earlier. I thought that was a useful conversation. But I think one perhaps lesson learned in this discussion is that the longer we have time, longer lead time we have from our ministry, the more rich conversation we can have, and the higher our probabilities for success. So I don't begrudge anyone inputting a decision on their own. In fact, I think it's interesting and has driven probably the most interesting committee conversations that I've been a part of since my time here, whether we adopted those decisions or not. But the more time in advance, the reason there's more time in advance is to enhance those conversations even further. And so just for those of us who sit here permanently and think about this on a long-term basis, welcome people continue doing that. To enhance the conversation and I think increase our probability of getting to a result. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary.
I just want to make sure for these 2 decisions, we will include it as the text to the proceedings, but we will change it to a number of countries, because those are the technologies mentioned in the country statement. So we'll make sure this reflects in the proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. I recognize the distinguished delegates from Japan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a request in terms of the account of proceeds, it would be very useful to kind of also illustrate how we arrived at this decision instead of just a collation of statements. I think this has been a very valuable discussion, so if you can reflect that as well. But we again like to reiterate the document that perhaps maybe this is a discussion for ACPR, but I think the document 81/28 under the 81st Commission really should be well noted by member states. And maybe this should be highlighted at ACPR. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? Russian Federation, please take the floor.
My apologies actually for being kind of late and lagging behind. Am I right that we are now looking through all the sections of the report, correct? 2 and 3. Or we are now on section 2? Please tell me.
I think the proposal is to move decision 2 and the 3.
No, that's fine. That's what I understand. I simply missed that in my conversation with the colleagues, whether we are now discussing section 2 of the report or we are discussing section 2 and section 3. My apologies for this confusion.
We are going to section 2 now.
Okay, I have comments on section 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. have now concluded our concentration of the decision. If there are no further comments on the decision, may I open the floor? Any comments of the remaining section, which is section 2 of the report? Section 2 is adopted.
Because he said the section 3.
I recognize the distinguished delegates from Russian Federation. You have the comments. Please take the floor.
Thank you. 2 quick points, actually. One of the list of the side events, as we noted, not all side events as organized by the delegation of the Russian Federation were organized. They are not reflected in the text, and we do hope that it will be just that it is an innocent, actually, mistake, oversight, and we hope that they will be reflected in the text. This is one thing. The second would be editorial caveat for paragraph 14 of the section 3. In the very end of this sentence, which finishes, which reads, and be annexed to the present report, we suggest to add caveat, tail, whatever, as an integral part of the document. The phrase would read, and be annexed to the present report as an integral part of the document.
Thank you. I recognize the United States of America. Please take the floor.
Thank you. If I could just, thinking of my Russian, esteemed Russian colleague, could I get a better understanding of what the impacts of that inclusion are on the further consideration of this report by the Commission at the Commission session in 2027? My understanding from prior experience is that accounts of proceed are not considered part of the report, which is adopted by the Commission session. And does this impact that, or what is the generalized effect of this addition? Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize the distinguished delegates from the Japan. Please take the floor.
If the Secretary can respond to that question, and then to the prior question. Or prior to, yeah, not Secretary, Russian Federation, and then I'll.
Thank you, Humping. Actually, I have to say that from the point of legalities, the annexes to the report, they always represent an integral part. And what we are doing now, we are restating a self-obvious thing, but we would like to make it clear that the report has to be read in its entirety. It is not intended, that's not how we see that the account of proceedings will be subjected to consideration by the Commission. No, but definitely no. And actually, any attempt like that would be rejected by the Commission because this is just an account of proceedings. But for the holistic approach to the activities under the committee, that might be very important and useful source of inspiration for deliberations and the development of activity, development of deliberations at the future stages, so that we could recall what was actually reflected. I have to say, honestly, that what we have just added, it is self-evident, and it is kind of, like making the butter buttery. But in terms of getting 100% clarity, we would like to this kind of a legal caveat. Thank you.
I recognize the delegates from Japan. Please take the floor.
I think this is standard formula for this section in every committee, and we would prefer having a standing formula. We have been uncomfortable about the account of proceeds, as you recall, from several committees in the past, and I don't really quite fully understand the rationale here, especially in light of the fact that we kind of move the decisions to the account of proceeds. I prefer that we have the standard language that we use in the other documents in the committee and not set a new precedent here, please. Thank you.
Secretariat.
Can I just ask our experts for editorial this kind of issue?
Yeah.
I will invite the secretary to explain the situation, please.
So we will invite the Secretary of the Commission to give his comments about this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, colleagues. Yes, so I think keeping all the important suggestions from our distinguished delegates. So when the commission session will endorse or take note of this report, that will include 3 parts in this report. So one is the decision, number 2 is the organization, and number 3 is the account of proceedings. As we mentioned that our standard text here is what we have in paragraph 14. So I think the way it stands, based on our experience and your agreement, that we continue with this paragraph, meaning that to have the particular phrase be annexed to the present report, so that all the conversations that we have, including moving these 2 decisions in the account of proceedings, will include and will be taken either note or endorsed at the commission session. So I think that kind of clarifies from our point of view the current practice and the rules. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Russian Federation, please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My thanks to the Secretariat for explanatory notes. And I have to say that I said the same, that actually this is kind of, making what I call making the butter buttery, creamy, or what it might be a good expression in puristic English language. I said that. It is something like self-evident, but lawyers, they do like those kind of, specific focus on the issues to avoid, and I've been witness of so many conversations about the status of core document and its annexes. Believe me, I've been through that. I have a T-shirt and number of times. That's why this caveat. In view of the explanatory notes of the Secretariat, I have to say that, okay, I'm on par with that, and honestly, not going to suggest that we go around a vicious circles this time at this committee. I can only regret this kind of approach. We did like this in the past, and why should not we keep doing that in the future? This is not something very inspirational. If we continue doing like we did in the past, that means that we do not give enough incentives and incremental steps in our deliberations. I'm sure we have to go beyond that, to be more creative, to improve the activities. So that might be the exercise for the discussions under the new round of conference structure review, which is coming in 27. And the process would start in 26, I believe. With that in mind, okay, we can accept that, and we can revoke this caveat if it makes colleagues happy, with the understanding that as provided by the Secretariat orally for formal records of this committee. I stress it, for formal records of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you from Russian Federation. Is there any other or same comments? I did not recognize. Okay, as we have reviewed all sections of the report, I propose the draft report adopted with the editorial changes to take care by the Secretariat. Are we all in agreement on this point? Okay, thank you. Distinguished delegates, as I hear a view of the contrary, I declare this report adopted by acclamation. I would now like to invite the Director of the Energy Division, Mr. Hongpeng Liu, to deliver his conclusion remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, as we conclude the fourth session of the Committee on Energy, I would like to sincerely thank all the delegations for your active participation and for the spirit of cooperation that has guided our work over the past 3 days. I really think it's not easy, but as we have done it. But this session has also reaffirmed the committee's role as a vital platform for advancing our shared vision of a secure, sustainable, and interconnected energy future for Asia and Pacific. We began by considering how to transform our energy systems for a just and sustainable future. So the panelists at the high-level dialogue and the delegates underscored the urgency of scaling up for renewables, energy efficiency, and cleaner technologies, while expanding access to modern energy to ensure the transition is inclusive and leaves no one behind. So in reviewing the progress on SDG 7 and the implementation of the ministerial declaration, we welcomed several encouraging signs, including that the region is on track to achieve universal access to electricity by 2030. Yet, the challenges remain. Clean cooking's deployment is lagging, renewable energy sharing are too slowly, and the efficiency gains must accelerate. So many of you shared practical experiences, highlighting the importance of technical cooperation, financing, and policy innovation. So on regional power connectivity, the committee recognized that no country can fully realize its renewable potential in isolation. So the regional roadmap on power system connectivity provides a shared framework. And the initiatives like the Green Power Corridor framework are supporting efforts towards more integrated, resilient, and sustainable power systems. We also devoted attention to critical minerals and the technologies that underpin energy transitions. So delegations stressed the importance of building reliable and sustainable supply chains, ensuring that resources deployment is aligned with the environment and social standards, with the emphasis on circularity. Importantly, this session placed the spotlight on youth engagement. We were reminded that the next generation will be most affected by the energy choices we make today, and that they must be empowered as partners that through skills, education, and participation in policy making. In reviewing the report of our experts working groups, delegates provided more guidance to strengthen regional cooperation and evidence-based policy making, and also the organizations of these experts working groups. So looking forward, your guidance and the preparation for the next Asian and Pacific Energy Forum in 2027 will be critical to ensuring that this ministerial platform advances concrete regional cooperation that delivers ambitious outcomes. Distinguished delegates, 3 clear messages emerged from our discussions. We must act with the urgency to deliver on SDG 7 within the next 5 years. Regional and international cooperation are indispensable to success, and the energy transition must be just, inclusive, and people-centered. On behalf of ESCAP, I would like to thank the chair, vice chairs, the rapporteur, and all delegations for your constructive engagement. I also extend our gratitude to the government of Thailand and the Ministry of Energy for their warm hospitality and strong partnerships in hosting this committee session. I also wish to thank all the translators, interpreters, editors and conference management colleagues for their hard work, as well as to many others who contributed to effective services for this meeting. I would like to especially recognize all those from the Secretariat, in particular the Secretary of the Commission, Deputy Secretary of the Commission, provided helpful guidance and support. All colleagues in the Division of Energy and the other substantive divisions who worked behind the scene to make this meeting session a successful one. During these 2 days of deliberations, your good comments and suggestions were heard. The Secretariat will take forward the guidance you have provided. We remain fully committed to supporting member states in advancing energy access, renewable energy, energy efficiency, sustainable supply chains, and youth engagement, always with focus on building a more interconnected and resilient energy future. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the challenges before us are significant, but the opportunities are even greater. So we should enhance our collaboration on sharing knowledge and acting decisively to accelerate the transition towards clean, reliable, and affordable energy for all. I thank you once again for all the delegates for your contribution and commitment. I wish you all safe travels home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Liu. I would like to call the Secretary to make housekeeping announcement.
Thank you.
I recognize the Russian Federation. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. If I may, I specifically waited for the report to be adopted, so the comments I'd make here would be off record, but there is basically, there is obviously an observation we would like to share with our delegation, with other delegations. I mean, for every negotiations in the multilateral arena, there is always an option to use the kill switch and just to make sure that the meeting would end with 0 decisions, or as in our case, 1 decision. But I mean, I've been working here in this specific duty station for 7 years before, and I have witnessed the committee sessions back in the years they were organized here. And unfortunately, I can only come to a conclusion that 95% of the discussion of this committee, of live deliberations of delegates who came here in this room, were dedicated to the procedural part of business rather than substantive discussion. And well, it is our strong desire, in future sessions and in other sessions of the committee, so to make the floor for deliberations of experts who come here, who are experts on the matters they're working on. In our delegations, we had 20 members of delegations representing the Ministry of Energy, other agencies and private companies dealing with specific matters of energy transition and energy cooperation. And our desire and our intention was, when we also put forward the suggestions for the consideration of the committee, to have a substantive discussion on them during the concluding sessions. And well, unfortunately, there was no such discussion. And I mean, for in the nature of our proposals for the consideration of the committee, again, they were intended to get us in a different level of discussion rather than arguing about hours or days or months how we submitted those proposals. Of course, in the future sessions, we would try to follow this new rules of procedure and provide the comments in advance, just answering to some comments made by the delegations. But it's very difficult not hearing the discussion in the room to make suggestions for specific recommendations and decisions. And again, we were expecting other delegations to submit their proposals to the report. So to make sure that it doesn't seem that the Russian delegation is the only one submitting proposals to the report. That's why we want to focus, for instance, on the small modular reactors. And the reason behind that was that in recent years, the development of energy sector has clearly shown that this is a technology that would really have a solution, tangible and economically viable solution for the remote areas. and the people living in those territories, which is basically perfectly going along the task of leaving no one behind and ensuring energy access for all. So that is exactly the reason why we stepped forward with this proposal. It's not about like cherry picking of the favorite options or anything. And again, while we were stuck with purely procedural matters and without no discussions on the substance, and that basically how the whole ending part of the committee went. There is clearly like a procedural glitch in terms of the timing of submission, because while it means that all the deliberations which are going on Thursday after 12 p.m. would not end up with any decisions because we're not falling under the 24 hours. That is also a thing to address, maybe, I don't know, in the deliberations of the ECPR, because this committee clearly shown there is a procedural glitch in the whole arrangement. So with ending this commission, of course, we regret that it ended with only one decision on the regional connectivity, and basically, well, all of the areas of work which we outlined for the committee, they are not reflected in the committee decisions and recommendations. But, well, there is basically room for improvement here, and not only improvement by reviving like the ways the committees used to work before, with experts in the areas who are capable and authorized and to represent their country's position and dwell into those discussions rather than, summing whole discussion into the procedural matters. So again, well, we really call on delegations in the future sessions of the commission to bring more experts to put forward the proposals for decisions and recommendation of the committee, because otherwise, like the whole purpose of coming physically to another city, to the headquarters and negotiating like in a live manner, it basically, well, falls off. Because if it's only about hearing the country statements and like listing them in the outcome report without coming to any joint conclusion, then the whole multilateral process is, well, irrelevant. That's what I would say. So again, I mean, we would basically proceed in the same manner and try to bring more and more recommendations and decisions, because this is what the committee is about. It should deliberate and agree on something jointly, rather than like enlisting on what individual delegations have said. So yeah, if I may, thank you.
Thank you for the very good comment. I announced you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the Secretariat will post the statement. I think this is also requested from member countries. So we will post the statement at the committee website. And we have sent a request for confirmation to the speakers to confirm the final version of your statement, because the delivery of the statement on site and the submitted statement, some of these are different. So we just want to get the confirmation by noon of Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. Then we will take as a given that your submitted statement is accurate. We also would like to remind the participants to complete the brief online survey through the link and the QR code provided on the screen, and also the link from the committee website on the overview tab. So your feedback will be very helpful, help us to improve our services and the support to the delegation. I thank you very much for your continued support. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Secretary. Before we close the meeting, I would like to thank ESCAP and its staff of the effective servicing in this committee session. I would also like to thank you other members of the Bureau, as well all delegations for the active participation and support extended to me and the rest of the Bureau. I now declare the fourth session of the Committee Energy is closed.